I can't hide from you anymore, she gasped, as the cowboy saved her from a terrifying past. The twin suns of the desert planet Varelia beat down mercilessly on the dusty streets of Silver Spur, a small frontier town clinging to life among rusted metal and cracked stone. Old wooden facades lined the streets, but hovering signs blinked in neon colors, advertising energy rations, fuel cells, and cybernetic repairs. The town was a strange mix of old Earth Western nostalgia and the harsh realities of space colonization. Elara stumbled through the main street, her boots scuffing up dry dust, leaving tiny marks that would soon be erased by the ever-present wind. Her chest heaved with exhaustion, and her heart thumped as though it wanted to escape her chest. She had been running for days, maybe weeks, ever since the mercenaries had found her on the colony of Auron's Reach. She didn't even know why they were after her. She only knew that they were relentless. Around her, the townspeople gave her wary glances. Some whispered behind their hands. Others pretended not to notice. She had long learned that desperation often invited suspicion. She needed help, but in Silver Spur, help came only to those with connections or coin. And she had neither. A sudden shadow fell over her path. Elara looked up and saw a tall figure leaning against a wooden post outside the Silver Spur saloon. His hat cast a shadow over his face, hiding most of his features. Only his piercing blue eyes were visible, sharp and alert. He wore a long duster coat, dusted with the same sand that covered the town, and a pair of revolvers rested comfortably on his hips, old-fashioned yet enhanced with high-tech energy emitters. The man's presence made her stomach tighten. Part of her feared he might be another hunter, but there was something in his stance, calm, controlled, confident, that made her pause. "Looking for trouble?" His voice was low but carried clearly across the street. Elara shook her head, stepping back. "No, I'm just passing through." Her voice cracked slightly. The man straightened and tipped his hat. "Name's Cole. You don't look like the usual types around here, and you don't belong on these streets. Come on, before the suns eat you alive." Elara hesitated. Something about him made her want to trust him, though she couldn't explain why. Perhaps it was the way he didn't look at her with suspicion, or the way he seemed to carry his own past like a shield. Cole extended a hand. "I don't bite, and neither do the townsfolk if you stay close to me." Swallowing her fear, Elara allowed herself to be guided toward the saloon. The inside was dim, the air thick with the smell of roasted protein rations and dust. A few miners and traders looked up briefly, but returned to their business. Cole led her to a small back room just off the main hall. "Sit," he said, motioning to a worn chair. "Now tell me, what are you running from?" Elara's eyes darted around the room. I don't know exactly. I just know they'll kill me if they catch me. I don't even know why I'm important." Her voice trembled. Cole sat opposite her, leaning forward slightly. "Start from the beginning, slowly. Every detail matters." And so, Elara began. She told him about her life as a researcher on Auron's Reach, how she had stumbled upon a corporate experiment, one that involved illegal genetic modifications on colonists. At first she had thought of reporting it, but before she could, the company had sent men to eliminate anyone who knew too much. "They came for me," she whispered. "They said, if I ever told anyone, I'd be dead." Cole nodded, listening carefully. "You're lucky you made it here. Silver Spur is remote, but not untraceable. Those men have tech, trackers, scanners, drones. They'll find you if you let your guard down." Elara's heart sank. "I thought I could hide. I thought I could just run until they gave up." Cole shook his head slowly. "They don't give up. Not until they get what they want. Running only delays the inevitable, but standing your ground, that's where hope starts. For the first time since her escape, Elara felt a flicker of hope. Not much, just a small ember, but enough to warm her against the fear that had been her constant companion. Suddenly, the wooden door to the saloon creaked. Cole's hand hovered near his revolver. Two figures stood in the doorway, shadows stretching long across the floor. Their presence was enough to make Elara's pulse spike. Guests of the saloon? Cole's voice was calm but firm. One of the men stepped forward. His eyes were cold, calculating. He wore a high-tech visor over one eye, flickering with data streams. "We're just looking for someone. Maybe you've seen her?" Elara froze. She recognized the voice. It was the voice of the hunter closest to her on Orin's Reach, the one who had caught her twice before she escaped. Cole stood, placing himself between her and the intruders. "If you're looking for trouble, you'll have to find it somewhere else. This isn't your fight." The hunter laughed, a cruel sound that echoed off the wooden walls. "Oh, it's very much our fight. And she's coming with us, one way or another." Elara's stomach dropped. She wanted to scream, to run, but her legs refused to move. Cole's eyes met hers, and in that single glance he communicated something she desperately needed. "Trust me." With a swift motion, Cole grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the back exit of the saloon. Outside, the suns had nearly set, casting a fiery glow over the desert streets. The two hunters followed, but Cole was faster. He drew his revolvers, not firing yet, just using the threat of action to keep them at bay. "Elara, stay close," he ordered. "We're heading to the edge of town. There's a place you can hide. Temporary, but enough to get a plan together." Elara nodded, her fear mixed with adrenaline. She had never experienced a protector like Cole, someone who didn't just act on instinct, but with purpose and strategy. They ran through alleys and side streets, the dust swirling around their feet. The hunters shouted behind them, but the sounds faded as they reached the outskirts of Silver Spur. Cole led her to a small abandoned storage shed, its metal walls rusted and dented. "This will do for now," he said, closing the door and locking it with a small electronic pad. "They'll scan the town, but it won't be long before they move on. For now, you're safe." Elara sank to the floor, finally allowing herself to breathe. "Thank you. I don't even know how to repay you." Cole crouched beside her. "You don't owe me anything. But you do owe yourself the courage to survive, running forever. That's not life. Facing them, using your mind, your skills. That's how you win." Her eyes filled with tears, partly from fear, partly from relief. She had been running so long that she had forgotten what it felt like to feel safe, even for a moment. "Tomorrow," Cole continued, "we start planning. We find out why they're after you and how to stop them. For now, rest. You've earned it." Outside, the twin moons of Varelia rose, casting silver light over the desert. Somewhere in the distance, the hunters lingered, unaware that their quarry was no longer just a frightened girl. They had underestimated Elara and the cowboy who had chosen to stand by her. As Elara drifted into an uneasy sleep, she realized something she hadn't admitted to herself until now. She couldn't hide forever. And with Cole's help, maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't have to. The wind howled outside the shed, carrying with it the faint echo of distant engines. Somewhere in the dark, her past was still hunting her. But for the first time, she felt a spark of hope that maybe she could face it. And for the first time in a long while, she wasn't alone. Morning came slowly over the desert planet of Varelia, the twin suns climbing into the pale sky, painting the sand in shades of gold and copper. Inside the small abandoned shed on the outskirts of Silver Spur, Elara stirred awake. Her body ached from running, but her mind raced faster than ever. The events of the previous night had left her shaken, yet strangely alert. Cole was already awake. He sat near the entrance, cleaning his revolvers with meticulous care. His movements were calm, precise, almost ritualistic. Alara watched him for a moment, noticing the way the light caught his eyes, sharp and determined. There was something almost reassuring about his calmness, a certainty that life, even on a lawless planet like Virelia, could be fought for. "You awake?" Cole asked without looking up. Ilara nodded. "Yeah, I didn't sleep much. You need rest, not running on empty. It'll slow you down." She wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. Instead, she sat cross-legged on the dusty floor, trying to gather her thoughts. Cole finally looked at her, his gaze piercing but not harsh. "We need to talk. About them. About why they're after you. The sooner we understand, the better our chances." Elara swallowed hard, unsure if she wanted to speak. But she realized that holding back her story had gotten her nowhere. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll tell you everything. I have no choice." Cole nodded and gestured for her to begin. "I was a researcher," she started, her voice trembling, "on a colony called Oran's Reach. My job was to study how humans could adapt to extreme planets. I focused on genetic research and environmental adaptation." She paused, taking a shaky breath. "But one day, I discovered something I wasn't supposed to see. The company, they were doing experiments, illegal experiments, on colonists. They were changing people without their knowledge." Cole's expression didn't change, but his eyes darkened slightly. "People? Like human experiments?" Elara nodded. "Yes, and when I tried to report it, they sent men after me. They want to erase me, completely." Cole leaned back against the wall, letting the silence hang for a moment. Then he spoke, his tone even but firm. "So you ran. And you kept running until you reached Silver Spur. You didn't even know why, but instinct told you to survive." "Yes," Alara said. "But I can't keep running. I'm exhausted. And I'm scared. Always scared." Cole regarded her for a moment, as if measuring her courage. Then he said, "Running doesn't make you weak. Not standing your ground makes you weaker. You survived this long because you were smart and cautious. That's your strength. And now, we need to turn that strength into action." Elara's head spun. Action? She had spent weeks or months just hiding, running, and fearing every shadow. How could she suddenly face those who wanted her dead? Cole seemed to read her thoughts. "You're thinking you're not ready. That's natural. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting even when fear is there. I've lived my life that way, and it's the only way to survive in places like this." She looked at him, really looked, and saw not just a cowboy, but someone who had survived horrors she couldn't imagine. Someone who carried his past like a shield but never let it make him cruel. "Then, what do we do?" she asked quietly. Cole stood and moved toward the small table in the corner, pulling out a folded piece of paper. "First, we need to understand what they know and how they track you. Then we plan. You're going to help me with that." Elara frowned. "Me? I can't fight like you. I don't even know how to shoot one of those, whatever those guns are." Cole smiled faintly, shaking his head. "Fighting isn't just about guns. It's about brains, strategy, knowing your environment. You survived by being clever. That's the most dangerous weapon anyone can have." He handed her a small device, a scanner, compact and sleek. This will detect tracking signals. You'll learn to use it. Elara held it hesitantly, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. Okay, I'll try. Cole nodded approvingly. Good. We start with small steps. First, we check the perimeter of the town. We need to make sure they haven't placed any trackers or hidden surveillance. By mid-morning, they slipped out of the shed and began walking along the edges of Silver Spur. Cole taught her how to move quietly, how to watch for drones and sensors, and how to notice signs of someone following them. Elara was a quick learner, absorbing his instructions with intense focus. As they walked, Cole shared his own story, carefully, without forcing it on her. I lost my family to raiders years ago. They destroyed our homestead, and I swore I'd never let myself be powerless again. I became a cowboy of sorts. Protector, tracker, problem solver. Some call me mercenary, some call me hero. I call it survival with honor. Elara listened, understanding a little more about the man who had risked himself for her. He had pain, but he had chosen to do good despite it. That gave her hope. Suddenly, the scanner beeped. A faint signal, too weak to track them completely, but close enough to warn them that someone had been here recently. Cole crouched, inspecting the signal. "They've been here," he muttered. "Probably last night. They're cautious, but they're close." Elara's heart raced. They're tracking us?" Cole's expression was serious. "Yes, but that doesn't mean we run blindly. That means we plan. We use what they don't expect, and we use your knowledge. You understand their tech more than I do." Elara swallowed, feeling a mix of fear and determination. "Then, let's plan." They spent the rest of the day mapping the town, marking potential hazards, escape routes, and areas that could serve as safe spots. Cole taught her how to use the scanner to detect not just trackers, but also hidden drones and energy fields. He showed her how to set small traps, not deadly, just warnings, and how to stay silent while observing the environment. By late afternoon, they returned to the shed. Both were tired, but Elara felt a strange exhilaration. She had never been part of a plan, never had a hand in her own survival. Now, for the first time, she was not just running. She was fighting in her own way. As they ate a simple meal of protein bars and purified water, Cole spoke again. "Tomorrow we move. We can't stay here forever. They'll know we're hiding, and then they'll come looking more carefully. We need to draw them out, find out what they really want, and stop them from hurting anyone else." Elara nodded. The idea of facing her pursuers terrified her, but Cole's confidence gave her courage. I think I'm ready," she admitted quietly. Cole looked at her, a faint smile on his lips. "Good. That's the first step. Remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite it. You've already proven you can do that." The sun set over Silver Spur, casting long shadows across the desert. The town was quiet, but danger lurked beyond every hill, every wind-swept canyon. Elara knew the hunters were patient. They had resources, technology, and ruthlessness. But for the first time, she felt she had an advantage, too. Knowledge, courage, and a protector who would stand by her no matter what. Night fell, and the stars of Varelia stretched across the sky, bright and unyielding. Cole cleaned his weapons again while Elara studied the scanner, learning to understand its signals. They didn't speak much, but a silent understanding grew between them. They were a team now. Before sleep finally claimed them, Elara realized something important. She could no longer run from her past. She couldn't hide from the hunters, and she couldn't hide from herself. But with Cole by her side, she had a chance, not just to survive, but to fight back. And somewhere deep inside, she felt a spark of hope ignite, a spark that promised she could face the darkness ahead. Tomorrow, they would act. Tomorrow, they would move. And for the first time in her life, Alara felt the stirrings of strength, not just survival instinct, but courage. Cole glanced at her one last time before closing his eyes. "Sleep well," he murmured. "Tomorrow, we start taking control." Alara lay back, her mind racing but calm in a way it hadn't been for months. She was ready. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, she didn't feel helpless. Outside, the desert wind whispered through the town, carrying with it the faint hum of distant engines. The hunters were still out there. But now, Alara and Cole were ready. They would not run forever. They would not hide. They would face whatever came together. And the first step of that journey had already begun. The first light of Verelia's twin suns cut through the thin haze of dawn, casting a golden glow over the endless desert beyond Silver Spur. The town was still asleep, quiet except for the occasional rustle of wind through the empty streets. But somewhere out there, danger was stirring. The hunters who had been chasing Alara were relentless. They had resources, weapons, and no mercy. Cole stood outside the shed, scanning the horizon with a small optical device. Alara stood beside him, holding the compact tracker he had taught her to use. The signal from the hunters was faint, but they were moving closer. "They're out there," Cole said, his voice low and steady. "And they're closing in faster than we thought." Alara swallowed hard. Fear clenched at her chest, but she forced herself to breathe. "Then we leave?" Cole nodded. "Yes. But we can't just run blindly. We need to control the chase, lead them where we want. And we need to use what we know, the land, our skills, and your knowledge of their tech." Ilara's pulse raced. This was no longer hiding. This was action. And action scared her. But Cole's presence gave her courage. She had learned from him that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was acting despite it. They mounted their hoverbikes, sleek machines built for speed in desert terrain. The engines hummed, vibrating through their bodies, and they shot off across the endless dunes. The sun glinted off the sand, blinding at moments, but Cole guided them with ease, weaving through rocky outcrops and canyons that would have slowed anyone else. As they rode, Cole explained the plan. "We'll head to Iron Canyon first. It's a narrow pass, perfect for slowing them down. You'll see how we can use the terrain to our advantage." Alara nodded, gripping the handles tightly. Her legs shook, but her mind was sharp. She scanned the horizon with the tracker, noticing the faint signals flickering in and out. She was starting to understand patterns, movements, and how to anticipate the hunter's next moves. Suddenly, a shadow passed overhead. Alara looked up and saw a drone, sleek and black, cutting through the morning air. Its sensors glinted in the sunlight, scanning for them. "They found us," she whispered. Cole didn't hesitate. "Hold on." He pushed the bike faster, weaving between jagged rocks. He reached into his coat and pulled a small device. With a flick of his wrist, a burst of electromagnetic energy shot out, disabling the drone mid-air. They continued through the canyon, the walls narrowing and widening unpredictably. Suddenly, a figure appeared ahead, a familiar silhouette. Ilara's heart froze. It was Draven, a former colleague who had once worked with her at Orin's Reach. His presence was a shocking betrayal. "Draven?" she whispered. Cole noticed her hesitation. "Focus. This is part of the plan. We'll handle him." Draven's voice carried over the canyon. "Alara, it's pointless to run. You can't hide from us forever." Elara felt a wave of anger and betrayal, but she pushed it aside. She had to survive, not just for herself, but for the truth she carried. Cole slowed their bikes, signaling her to follow his lead. "We'll use the canyon to separate him from the rest. Be ready." As they approached a narrow bend, Cole maneuvered the bikes through a tight gap, forcing Draven to swerve sharply. Elara activated another disruptor, and his bike jolted, almost tipping him over. The rest of the hunters, further behind, were still trapped in the wider part of the canyon, unable to advance quickly. Alara's pulse raced, but she felt exhilarated. This was her first real action, and she was alive and effective. They pressed forward, exiting the canyon and into an open expanse of metallic desert. The ground was rough, dotted with rusted remnants of old colonies and half-buried vehicles. Cole guided them carefully, knowing that the terrain could hide dangers or opportunities. "Look ahead," Cole said, pointing to a ridge. "We'll split up there. You take the left path, I'll take the right. They'll be forced to choose, and that gives us control." Elara hesitated. "Alone?" Cole shook his head. "Not alone, we're separated, but in contact. Trust me, you've got this." Taking a deep breath, Elara followed his instructions. She kept the tracker active, scanning for signals, and moved carefully along the ridge. Her mind was focused, her fear now sharpened into alertness. Every rock, every shadow, every shift in the wind could indicate movement. Below, the hunters approached the split. Draven hesitated, confused by the sudden separation. The others followed his lead, giving Elara the perfect opportunity. She activated the disruptor again, temporarily blinding their sensors. They swerved and slowed, unsure of which path to take. Cole's strategy was working, and she could feel it. The thrill of being part of the plan, of actively defending herself and surviving. After several tense minutes, the hunters regrouped, frustrated but undeterred. Elara's heart pounded, but she didn't panic. Cole had taught her well. Patience, observation, and action at the right moment were more powerful than brute force. Finally, they reached the edge of the metallic desert, a place where jagged ruins and sharp cliffs provided cover. Cole was waiting, a faint smile on his lips. "You did well," he said. "I couldn't have done this without you." Elara felt a rush of pride. For the first time, she realized she was more than just a scared girl running from danger. She was smart, capable, and brave, and she had Cole by her side, a protector who trusted her, who guided her, and who believed in her. As they paused to rest, the twin suns hanging low in the sky, Cole spoke quietly. "Tomorrow, we move further. We can't stay in the open like this. We need to find a safe spot, regroup, and plan our next move. But today, you survived." "That counts for a lot." Elara nodded, exhaustion and relief washing over her. She had faced her fears, used her skills, and survived. And for the first time, she didn't feel completely helpless. The desert stretched endlessly before them, harsh and unforgiving. But Elara now understood something important. She could face it. She could face the hunters, her past, and whatever dangers lay ahead. Together, she and Cole would navigate the wasteland, outsmart their pursuers, and take control of their fate. As night fell over the metallic desert, the wind carrying the faint hum of distant engines, Elara felt a spark of hope ignite. She was no longer just running. She was fighting, learning, and surviving. And somewhere deep in the desert shadows, the hunters were learning something too. That Elara, with Cole's guidance, was not an easy target. The chase had only just begun, but now, for the first time, the hunted had a plan. The sky above Varelia had turned a deep violet, the twin moons rising over the jagged horizon. Cole and Elara rode their hover bikes through the last stretch of desert, moving toward the forgotten station, a derelict space station orbiting the dying planet of Korath Prime. The station was abandoned decades ago, left to drift in orbit with rusting solar panels and broken docking bays. It had become a hideout for smugglers and scavengers, but now it was the perfect place for a trap. Cole had scouted it months before and remembered every detail. "We'll use the station to our advantage," Cole said as they approached. "Its corridors are narrow, the gravity low, and it has plenty of blind spots. The hunters won't know what hit them." Elara clutched her scanner and her compact disruptor tightly. Fear was still there, coiling in her chest, but it was different now. Sharpened, focused. She was ready to face them, ready to take control rather than run. They landed at the docking bay, silent as shadows. The station's metal walls groaned with age. The air inside was stale, but it carried no scent of life, just the faint hum of ancient machinery. Cole motioned for Elara to follow him into the maze of corridors. "Remember," he whispered, "we control the space. We know it better than they do. Patience, observation, then action." As they moved deeper, Elara felt the thrill of preparation. Every shadow, every echo could conceal a hunter. She adjusted her scanner, following the faint signals in the dim light. She noticed a faint flicker, a sign of active energy, just enough to warn her they weren't alone. Cole pointed toward a side corridor. "There. That's where they'll come first. Set up your disruptor. When they enter, hit it. It won't hurt them, but it will scramble their tech and give us the advantage." Elara nodded, hiding behind a console. Her hand shook slightly as she prepared the device, but she remembered everything Cole had taught her. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was strategy, planning, and courage. From the shadows ahead, the familiar hum of engines echoed. The hunters had arrived, their footsteps and energy signals betraying their positions. At the front was Draven, his visor glinting in the dim light. He looked confident, perhaps overconfident, thinking Elara was still the scared girl he once knew. The moment they entered the corridor, Elara activated the disruptor. A pulse shot through the air, scrambling sensors and communications. The hunters staggered, disoriented, their movements jerky as their devices failed. Cole emerged from the opposite side, revolvers drawn, not firing, but moving to block any escape. "Stay calm. Move with me." "Follow the plan," he whispered to Elara. Together they advanced through the station, using the narrow corridors to funnel the hunters, keeping them from spreading out. Elara's heart pounded, but she moved with purpose, her scanner alerting her to every movement. She felt alive in a way she hadn't in months. Draven regained his composure, glancing at Elara with a mixture of disbelief and frustration. "You've changed," he sneered. "I thought you'd be easy." "I'm not the same person you left behind," Elara replied, her voice steady despite the adrenaline. "I'm not hiding anymore." Cole positioned himself at a junction, blocking the main path, while Elara flanked the hunters from another corridor. Every step, every breath, was calculated. The hunters were dangerous, but they underestimated her and Cole's coordination. Suddenly, one of the hunters lunged at Elara from the side, attempting to overwhelm her. She reacted instinctively, using the disruptor again, forcing him to stumble and lose balance. Cole fired a warning shot, just enough to alert him to stay back without causing real harm. Elara's confidence surged. Each time she used her knowledge and tools, she felt her fear diminish. She was no longer just a victim. She was part of the fight. As they pushed the hunters deeper into the station, Cole signaled her to follow a side route that led to the control room. From there, they could access the station's systems, lights, doors, and gravity controls, To further disorient the hunters, Alara moved quickly, scanning and analyzing. She found the control panel and remembered her training from Orin's Reach, how systems could be overridden, even if only partially. She tapped a few keys and the lights flickered, corridors darkening, gravity shifting slightly in certain sections. The hunters were forced to slow, stumble, and hesitate. Cole appeared behind her. Perfect. Now we have them exactly where we want. The hunters regrouped at the next junction, realizing they were being manipulated. Draven's eyes narrowed. We underestimated you, but it won't be enough. Alara felt her stomach tighten. Draven had always been clever, and she knew he was dangerous, but she remembered Cole's words. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's action in spite of it. She steadied herself, preparing for the final phase. Cole took the lead, his movements precise, blocking the hunters' escape routes while guiding Alara. Step by step, they funneled them into the control room. Once there, the narrow doors and low gravity gave Cole and Alara complete control. Draven stepped forward, furious but calculating. You think you've won? You can't hide forever. I'm not hiding, Alara said firmly. I'm facing you, and I'm not alone. Using the disrupted systems, she locked doors, diverted energy flows, and created barriers that the hunters couldn't easily bypass. Cole moved to intercept any who tried to attack directly, using his agility and weapons to control the situation without unnecessary violence. Finally, the hunters were cornered, their tech failing, their options limited. Draven stood in the center, realizing the fight was no longer in his favor. He glared at Alara, then at Cole. This isn't over, he hissed. Alara stepped forward, holding the scanner like a shield. It is over for now. You underestimated me. And you underestimated him. She nodded toward Cole, who stood ready, calm and imposing. The hunters surrendered, seeing no way to advance without risking themselves. Cole moved to secure them, using restraints that neutralized them without harm. Alara felt a rush of triumph. She had faced her fear, confronted her past, and survived. Cole placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You did it. You were brilliant. Without you, we couldn't have controlled this. You didn't just survive. You fought smart. Alara let out a long breath, relief flooding her. She had expected fear, maybe even panic, but instead she felt strength, something she hadn't felt in a long time. She had finally faced the danger that had haunted her, and she had overcome it. Draven, restrained and frustrated, glared at her. You changed? He muttered. I didn't expect this. You should have, Alara replied, her voice steady. I'm not running anymore. Cole led her to the control room window, overlooking the station's exterior. The moons glowed softly in the distance, reflecting off the metallic surface of the orbiting station. Alara felt a sense of accomplishment, of hope. The hunters were contained, the immediate threat neutralized, and she had learned something crucial about herself. She was stronger than she realized. Cole glanced at her, a faint smile on his lips. Tomorrow, we return to Silver Spur. We'll figure out the next steps, report the company, protect the colonies, and make sure this doesn't happen again. But for tonight, rest. You've earned it. Alara nodded, her heart still racing but filled with a new kind of calm. She had faced betrayal, danger, and fear, and she had prevailed. She was no longer the frightened girl who had stumbled into Silver Spur weeks ago. She was someone who could fight, plan, and survive. As they rested on the station, the twin moons of Virelia casting their glow, Alara thought about everything she had endured. The chase, the fear, the training, the confrontation. It had all led her here. And she realized something else. She didn't have to face the future alone. Cole was beside her, a protector, a guide, and perhaps something more. Somewhere deep inside, she felt a spark of courage ignite, a spark that promised she could face anything that came next. Not just survive, but thrive. And as she looked at Cole, she realized something else too. She could trust him. She could rely on him. She could finally stop hiding. For the first time in a long while, Alara felt truly free, not from danger, but from fear itself. The hunters were defeated, but the fight for justice and safety was just beginning. And together, Alara and Cole were ready to face it, side by side. Tomorrow they would return to Silver Spur, but tonight they had won a battle, and that was enough to give them hope, strength, and the courage to face whatever came next.